Lanna and Janet, welcome to the Retail Horror Podcast.
Thank you. I'm
Thank you.
happy to be here.
So you guys were part of the Submit Your Store, and Janet, your daughter submitted you and your store, a family store. And I just want to say like how much I loved that your daughter sent in this lovely note and why you should be nominated. And you're part of the Submit Your Store. And I will say this, I've had 3 Submit Your Store interviews this week, and they are some of the, because a lot of stores go off the radar. Like it's impossible to see all the stores because there's so many nationally. And part of the beauty of this Submit Your Store is I have a chance to meet store owners that I would never have even seen. I mean, it's incredible. So thank you so much for submitting your mom. So before we start, why don't we start with Lanna, since you sent in the paperwork, why don't you start off with introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing?
Sure. My name's Lanna Trantham, and I own a business called Grace and Grit, and I just sell kind of unique kitchen and bath goods, and I make a few things myself. But I learned everything I know in retail from my mom, who is Janet Calhoun. And my mom is a 6th generation potter, but she has built an amazing business in a small little tourist town in North Carolina from the ground up. So I learned everything from her. So thank you for having her on.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And did you have you said your mom helped you with your store that you just opened. Did you have retail experience before this? What did you do before this?
Well, actually, for the past 18 years, I've been at home as a stay-at-home homeschool mom.
Okay.
But I grew up working in the pottery shop, and I've worked a few retail stores and did some waitressing through college. So it's just I've kind of always helped mom off and on and worked in the pottery shop.
It's a great training period. And I think restaurants, to be honest, because I came out of the restaurant world as well, I think it's some of the best customer service training you could ever have, because you are going to have
absolutely
every walk of life.
Yep.
Janet, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay, well, my name's Janet Calhoun, and I have made pottery pretty much since I could walk. My parents worked for my grandparents in a pottery shop, and then I married my husband, and that's been about 40 years ago, and he was very interested in pottery, so we started Traditions Pottery. And then for the last 20 years, I've had a retail front, like Lanna was saying, in a little tourist town called Blowing Rock, North Carolina. So it's not even a mile long the main street. There's not even maybe 50 stores there, but we're all pretty unique. So it's a fun day trip and a fun getaway week in the mountains. So I've done some other retail management, done a little bit of retail consulting, but I've been selling stuff since I could walk, literally. I was thrown in they call it the sales room. So when my parents, grandparents, aunt and uncles were producing pottery more on a production level, we had a sales room in the front. They would work in the back, and they would see a car pull in and they'd say, "We'll go up and wait on the customers." So even in the first grade, I had to learn to count back money from a 20.
Wow, that's amazing. And so with pottery being in the family business, was it wholesale or was it retail? Because if you had a sales part in front and then a workshop in back, did you produce it for a lot of other people?
Yes, it was both. They would do little candle cups that they sold to, it's called Pinehurst Soap and Candle Company. And they would buy these little votive cups to pour like a small candle in, like a little 3-ounce candle. But my parents would throw those cups on a wheel. I mean, it's all hand done. There's no molds or anything. So that was the wholesale aspect. And then Saturday mornings at the pottery shop, people would come from hours away, to see what we'd taken out of the kiln that week. So it was pie plates and teapots and mugs and bowls and sugar and creamer sets and that type of thing. So they did both. It was a retail and wholesale business. They had to do both to make a living and to provide, my all the people that worked there. There was 8 people working there.
Wow.
So it was a very both. And we didn't do a lot of shows, but this was back in the 70s. So street shows, we didn't do a lot of that, but it was a lot of wholesale and just people knowing that our pottery shop was there and they would come to buy.
How many people what's the number of people that live in your town?
The town I'm in now, when I talk about the pottery, that was 3 hours away. So that was is a little town called Seagrove, and not a huge population, but they would drive from the bigger towns like Raleigh and Greensboro and Charlotte.
Wow. So because I was telling you earlier, I was scrolling through your email and there's
Uh-huh.
aerial shot and it looks like things are out of the kiln and you put everything on a really long table and it looks like people
Right.
all are standing in a circle around it. And then
That's right.
is that from like the way that used to be done? I mean, it's
Well, in a way it was. So years ago, before electricity, my grandparents would fire a wood-fired kiln versus electric or gas kilns that you have now. So twice a year, me and my husband, along with my parents, who are Bullock Pottery, we host what's called a wood-fired kiln opening. So we have our own wood kiln that we built, and we fire it twice a year. And twice a year, we invite people to come. We've been doing this about 30 years. And what you saw is we'll rope off an area with 6 or 8 tables and we unload. People get here at 10 o'clock and they watch us unload that wood kiln. So we fired it like two days later and it got to 2,200 degrees. So it takes about 2 days to cool off. So then when it gets cool, we love for people to come watch us unload it because we haven't seen it either. So we crawl in there and we unload the pots and we walk them. We have people that walk them over, like our friends. We call them toters, and they'll tote the pots over to the long tables. And then we drop that rope, and people just kind of go in there, swarm in there, and pick up what they want. But it's a lot of face jugs, a lot of teapots, candlesticks, more traditional pieces, and more of what we think is our better work. And then we make everyday pottery in electric kilns, and that's like mugs and bowls and useful things. So the wood kiln is just a fun way to see how people used to make pottery and get some collectible pieces at the same time. So we do one in June, and then we do one the Saturday after Thanksgiving, which is a great weekend to shop local.
oh,
Yeah.
what a great tradition. I love that. And how people come at 10 o'clock in the morning and how long do they wait and watch? Like, is it
They'll wait. There's probably 200 pots in there,
wow.
and there's probably 200, maybe 200 people there. So they'll wait probably 45 minutes for us to unload it. And then we'll have music going on. We invite some other artists to come in and, set up their art and demonstrate. And we're musicians. We love music. And, we always have some music in the background with a good local band or something.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
God.
it's a good morning. I mean, it starts at 10. It's usually over by 2 o'clock. We feed them lunch. My husband smokes barbecue, and we'll feed them lunch because we're 3 hours, from the nearest restaurant, or not 3 hours. I'm sorry, 3 miles from a restaurant. So we want them to stay in our little valley. We don't want them to leave, too early. So we'll feed them, and then by 2 or 3, it's over.
Oh my God, what a fun tradition. I love that.
It is fun. My parents are getting older now, and we've talked about doing just one a year, but it's such a tradition for their family. Like generational people are coming to our pottery shops. My age women are saying, well, my mom used to drag me down there on Saturdays, and they want pottery for their children. They want their children to have dinner plates or matching mugs or something. So it's very generational, even with our customers.
God, I have so many questions. The one thing, I mean, obviously the tariff is a big thing right now that most
Yes.
retailers are. And I think, one of the things I had said is that as unfortunate as the situation is right now, much like the pandemic, it is forcing retail to kind of morph and change as we're watching it in real
Mhm.
time versus like, oh, 10 years ago we did this. It's suddenly like this fast forward movement. And one of the things I was saying is that what I do like about it is forcing people to go and find American made goods. And unfortunately, America doesn't produce a lot of, High Point doesn't produce furniture anymore. And
Right.
the fabric people have moved out and, really skilled labor now is not, unfortunately, the US, but you are something that is something that's US made, that is artisan, that is generations long. And I love this idea. So do you still do wholesale now?
We do. Mike and I do some wholesale, but it's mostly retail. And then we do it's our state agricultural fair. So we do that in the fall, and it's a 10-day long show, and it's 1 million people in 10 days
Wow.
at the North Carolina Fair. North Carolina is big in agriculture. So, and that's 20% of our business in 10 days. But my store in Blowing Rock, it's about 800 square feet. And when I started it 18 years ago, I didn't want to just do pottery because I could not rely on ourselves to fill that up, the whole store with just pottery. It's overwhelming. I've seen stores like that. And so I buy other things to go in there. Someone called it a pottery boutique because I have the Natural Life brands. I have 3 or 4 other brands. I have some fun jewelry, but I also try to bring other potters in, and maybe I have one lady that makes great oil cruets, and I could never make a cruet that looks as good as hers, so I buy her pieces. So I try to incorporate with other potters, and then you can always find soap and lotion and candles locally, and then it just so I feel the tariffs too, but
Yeah.
on the other end of what I buy to resell. So
Yeah, that's interesting because it's like I said, it's the beautiful part is it's going to, for small makers, it's going to give them an opportunity to sell in a bigger
mhm.
marketplace. And like something like your brand, it's like that's the reason why I'm asking, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to ask, does she still sell wholesale? Because I was looking again, I was scrolling your Instagram, and those space jugs are amazing.
Mhm.
That's part of what is are those available year round, or is it only during the 2 times a year kiln part?
Mostly the kiln opener. My husband makes those. He's a great potter on the wheel, but he can sculpt too, and that's a great gift to have both. I can only throw, but he does a lot of face jugs, a lot of Santa Claus and wizards and things like that, and they're mostly available at our kiln openings. You can order one, like we have a .com where you can order online, but um, people need to order months ahead for Christmas. He just kind of stays behind on the orders.
So when you first opened, what was the square footage of your store again?
It's 800 square feet.
And how
Just a
much of
little,
it is dedicated to the pottery and then your other brands?
about 50. Yeah.
Okay.
It's when you walk in, both the perimeter walls is our pottery. And then I also carry my uncle's pottery. So there's 3 main potters there. And then the center tables are pottery. But when you get to the back, you'll see just some other, just I don't know how to explain it. It's just I do some clothes, I do some jewelry. So it's about 50-50. Yeah.
I mean, it all flows really well. I mean, that's what I mean, looking at Natural Life. I mean, they all
Yes,
really are complementary to each other. And, looking at, it looks like you also have local artist art, like where
I
they,
do. Yeah, I have a couple of great wall art pieces, and they're North Carolina artists. Yeah.
incredible. So take us through a little bit of like when you were with your parents and learning this. Is this something that was like a non-negotiable that you were going to learn, or is it something you
Well,
were really curious about?
yeah. So, just with my parents working for my grandparents, there was aunt and uncles there, and my other had 2 other aunt and uncles that worked just down the road at another pottery shop. And I was probably in the way. So a lot of times they would say, well, go play on the wheel, go try to make something because I always wanted to be in there. I wanted to help them glaze it and load the kilns and scrape it. And I was just little, I was probably in the way. So I think I really was thrown at the wheel, but they were also encouraging, oh, you should try to make another one like that, or make it a little bigger. Or the biggest thing my grandfather said, I made something one time and I was very proud of it, and it probably wasn't all that great, but he would say, well, I might make 6, and I'd have them on a little board, and he would walk by and he would just grab half of them and just squish them back, to a ball of clay. Yeah. And it would hurt your feelings so bad, but he would say, if I don't like it, nobody's going to buy it. And I was wasting his clay. But it's very true because you can recycle that clay. It's just mud and water is all it is. But he taught me to, if I wasn't pleased with it and I didn't think anybody else would like it, then I should just mess that up and start over.
Wow.
So, yeah. And that clay was not, people didn't go buy clay in bags like they do today. They dug it from the ground, they pulverized it, and they ran it through a mill to get it.
Wow. So it's
And
not,
we still do that today, but mostly because we have the resources to do that with,
it's not
you
something
know.
waste, in other words.
Yeah. And then when I was 16, I needed gas money. So, it's like, well, let me throw some pots for you. And then my parents had their bullet pottery then. And then I was, growing up, I got better at it, but it was more a means of just having some go money. But when Mike and I got married, he was just really set on learning to throw pots. He was a sheetrock contractor,
Wow.
but he just saw an opportunity to do something different. That's all he had done for years, and he was good at it. He still is. He's a good potter.
And with each, since you have so many generations working together, do you all have different styles, or is there, because it's funny, I grew up, my mom was an antique refurnisher, and I was born in 65, so it was during the 70s that growing up, and it was, very granola, and I remember she
Mhm.
saved cattails and dry cattails
Right.
in the garage, and I do remember she collected some pottery pieces, and it's funny, I don't love the old American antiques, I think because that's what I saw all the time.
Hmm.
But I have this now that I'm here in Oregon, and we've been doing, because I do flea markets in California, but you don't see as much old pottery. And now
Right.
I'm collecting little pinch pots and it's amazing to see the difference of both glazes and styles. And I mean, it's such an incredible art form. So do everyone in your family have a different style of throwing, or is it all?
Yeah, I mean they do, and we all develop our own glazes. Like, so when Mike and I started, we were given two coveted glaze recipes
Mm.
to make a blue and a white, and so those, that's your signature. Like our blue is called Bolic blue. It's a signature color. We have a color called oatmeal, and my grandfather developed it, gave it to my mom, and she tweaked it a little bit, and then she gave me that recipe, but only like 2 years ago. It's like your pimento cheese recipe. You don't give it to to everybody, but you do, if you have your own glaze, that you mix your own glaze and you have that color, and then you do have your own shapes. Like I make a teapot, my grandfather made a teapot, and my mom did, and they're all a little different, but they still have the same function, the same basic shape. So
Lawn.
a lot of collectors can just look at a pot and they'll know by the glaze or by the shape who
Wow.
made that pot without looking, how it was signed.
And they're obviously collectible pieces.
They are. I have one piece of my great grandfather's, and it's not very tall. It's about, I don't know, probably 14 inches tall. But he made big, like ornate canning jars,
Oh,
pickling jars,
wow.
moonshine jugs. But they were utilitarian. They would throw them on my grandfather would tell the story of throwing them on a horse and buggy, and him and his dad starting out in Seagrove and working their way like to Raleigh, and they would come up on these homesteads, and they would show the people that live there. They'd say, well, do you need a canning jar or pickling jars? And he said they would just go till they ran out of pottery, and then they'd
Wow.
turn around and go back home. Isn't that amazing? That
Oh my
was like,
God.
he was born in 1910, and that was his father died in like 1925. So grandpa was just a young boy then.
Wow.
But that's how they sold it. How, like, because it was just, they'd just go till they saw a farm homestead or something.
God, what an incredible piece of American history. I mean, that really is
Yeah, yeah.
American history when you think about, like, that is incredible. I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. Did do you obviously know how to throw, so do you still do this?
I don't. I don't make pottery, but I have been very busy with raising four children and homeschooling them and getting their education. They're getting to be teenagers, and I still have a young one. But I've always thought that maybe, once my kids are grown and gone, that I would kind of fall back to it maybe. And I find myself now that I'm in South Dakota, I miss it. I miss the pottery. So I've thought about that a lot. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your retail space. I know your mom helped you with it and gave you all the inspiration. So tell us a little bit about how
Yeah.
you came about doing this.
Well, I actually worked at a hardware store here in my tiny town, and the owner of the hardware store said he pointed to the building across the street and said, if you could do anything with that building, what would you do? And so I told him, I said, you have a lot of talented people in this town. I think I would probably put an emporium style business in there so that these people would have a place where they could sell their goods.
Mm.
And so he said, well, do it. And so that's how it came about. And then my booth is in there. It's called Grace and Grit. But I have a lot of like organic grains from Azure Standard. And then I also sell like local beef and pork that people have. And then I do like handmade soaps, and I make beef tallow lotions and that kind of thing. And then I also buy and sell some just unique kitchen and bath items. I think with everything that my mom's taught me about merchandising and, like if it doesn't sell, move it. And that's worked 100 times in the past year in my little booth. So I think with those skills that she has given me and watching her build things from the ground up, and now me building this business from the ground up, I've been able to help those others that had a talent but didn't really know retail. And so they've joined me, and they maybe have a booth, and it's called the local exchange. And so I've been able to help them kind of merchandise better and, move things around often, displays and that kind of thing.
Wow. Do you have a lot of walkthrough traffic?
No,
You,
no, we don't. Actually, our little town is kind of an economic development project. So I went to the city and we asked the city to pay our rent for a year, and they did.
oh, that's
And
amazing.
because our town is kind of dying, but there's a lot of people here that want to see it kind of revived. And so, no, we don't have a lot of foot traffic. We have a town of 1,100 people.
Oh,
And so there's like 3,500, I think, in our county. And then there's some other little towns and other in joining counties. And so I advertise there and we get other people in. But it is a tiny place, and we don't have a lot of foot traffic. We just started like in January 31st was our opening day. So we're brand new kind of still.
yeah.
And but we don't want to see our town die. And so we wanted to put something in that building, and, we're going to see how it goes. So it's pretty cool.
So how big is the building?
It's about 1,800 square feet.
So how do you, because I always think about like, you hear stories of people that have never had a retail store or, and they go in and they fixture it and they buy for it. And I'm always like, how do you do that with relative? I mean, unless you've opened a lot of stores, it's challenging figuring out what will fit. Well, you either have too much or you don't have enough. Like it's one or the other. And
Right.
the whole capital thing. And like, how did you approach? I mean, one, approaching the state, the county, having them, going to them and talking to them and having them pay the rent is brilliant, because there's so many big and little towns that are so desperate for, I mean, where I live, Medford, it's our downtown is horrible. Like I mean, everyone
Yeah.
has homeless. We have a huge, I mean, compared to LA, we don't have a huge homeless problem, but everyone thinks it's a huge homeless problem.
Mm.
The downtown is so quaint, and it's historical buildings, and it seems
Yes.
like it would be this like lovely place because there's a mix of there is some money here, but and there's tourism that comes to Jacksonville, Oregon, which is 10 minutes away from us because there's a thing called the Brit Festival, which is a big music festival. So there's a lot of tourism that comes into town, and Medford's 10 minutes away, but when you walk through what is our downtown, it's horrible. And I had gone out
Yeah.
to talk to Chamber of Commerce to see, are you doing any TI deals to get businesses here? And everyone just is kind of like, no,
No.
I'm like, what, why? Like, what? I don't understand. And there's
Yeah.
nowhere to shop here. Like there is, I mean, there's Walmart, there's Target, and there's Fred Meyer, and that's almost literally all there is to shop here, and grocery stores. And like, I just don't understand like how that happens. So take us a little bit through how you approach this.
Yeah. Excuse me. So our community is mostly farm and ranch. Most everybody here is farm and ranch. We sit in between two reservations, and so our community here is very eclectic. Just a very just a lot of different people here, and for where we are, and so I really didn't want to go to the city council because I don't know.
Please don't make
I've never gone to those type things, and I was just like, oh, I'm not sure about that. But the my boss at the time really encouraged me to. He was on the city council, and he was like, our town does not have any economic development plan, and that's in doing this project, I found out that that's the issue with a lot of small towns that are dying. They just don't have an economic development plan. And so people here, like our nearest Walmart is 2 hours away.
Holy
And so we're in the middle of nowhere. We want to keep all the business we can where we're at,
yeah.
in our town, so that our town can grow, our county, we're just better together, right? So I came up with kind of a business plan, how this would look, how it would work, and I took it to my city council and presented it to them. Not everybody loves it, not everybody loves what we have managed to accomplish, but we had enough votes where it passed, and they paid our rent for a year, and I already had the building pretty much full with the vendors, and so they came in, and I said, this is your 10 by 10 spot, you do with it what you want. And so they, as you were talking about fixtures and things like that, they had to supply that for their space. And so they brought in their stuff and their goods, and they were very nervous about opening. So we did just like a soft opening, like a friends and family night, and it was a hit and everybody loved it. And so then we did a grand opening about a month later. And, we have found that if we will do an event like once a month, it really helps our sales, and it helps every time we do an event, we have new people come in. And so that's what we try to do. Sometimes like I did make and take bath bombs one time, and we have a lady who has a booth that sells like the dry packets of like loaded teas, and everybody in town loves those teas. So they come in for a tea. So sometimes we'll do like a tea mix workshop or something, and then we'll have like a make and take bracelet or something like that, and that just brings new people in. And we just like this Friday is our first home football game, so we're having like a sports kickoff event, and we're doing some drawings for some stuff, and just me and the hardware store across the street. We've kind of teamed up in bringing Main Street alive again.
I
So
love that because there's so many small towns that need this, and I'm feeling everyone is very much like, I don't know where to start, or I don't know what
yeah,
to do. What was the
yeah.
pushback that you were getting from city council about it? Like, what was why would they not like it?
Well, one reason they said, was that government doesn't need to be in business, like in retail or someone else's business. And my reply to that was I somewhat agree with that, but it does, city council does need to be in economic development. And if this is bringing more business into our town, that means more tax dollars for you, for our
Yeah.
city, and for our county. So why not? I think some people just don't like change, you
Uh,
know.
that nailed that on the head. I'm guessing
So
the people that were pushing back were the older generation.
some, yeah, mostly. And then also, I'm not from here. We just moved here 2.5 years ago, and in a small town, that can be hard too,
Yeah.
for people to jump on board to your plan or something like that. But it's worked out really well, and everybody loves the space, and I think we're gonna, be able to continue even after the city is done paying for our rent, and hopefully, I'll have some numbers for them towards the end of the year that will, make them see the benefit of investing in this project.
I love that. Because I've interviewed a lot of spaces that are multi, whether they're consignment or different booths. And, I think in the world of retail, that's kind of a lot of what our future is going to look like because it
Yeah,
takes off some of the pressure financially. It makes a more interesting space. I feel like if you're coming as a
sure.
consumer to walk through and there's like, oh, I mean, it's like that's why I love flea markets because it's one booth you can
Mhm.
find, kettle corn popcorn, and the next booth down there's vintage boots I'm buying. I mean, that's the great
Yeah,
part of these, and to have something that, especially if Walmart is 2 hours away. Holy God, that is. I mean, I
yeah,
can complain now about my stupid little town and only having a Walmart and a Target, and that seems like that's like Mecca for you guys.
yeah, yeah. A trip to Walmart is a big deal. It's a whole day.
Oh my
So,
God, 2 hours. And it's funny 'cause my husband said, because I had said when we moved to Oregon, I want a slower life because after living in California, the freeways are a level of cars and traffic and stress that I can't even, especially coming and being in a small town. Like the volume of people is just now that I live here a year and a half later, it is unfathomable. Like thinking about how many people are on the roads and I get so used to now because 35 miles is the top mileage.
yep,
And I've already gotten 2 speeding tickets, which is because I can't get any more. Because I just am you come back from California for visiting and I'm still driving defensively. But I will say there is a slowness that I wanted when I moved here. I wanted to be able, if I'm going to go at that speed and work and live on a job site, when I'm here, I want to be present and have it be slow. And it is lovely. And David said to me, my husband, he said, I heard an article about someone saying all these people move out of California, they want a slower life, and then they're complaining there's no Whole Foods.
Yeah.
And I
yes,
said, God, I didn't even think about that. You're
yeah,
and it's true. But there are some amazing small businesses that I found, and it reminds me of when my mom, when we were growing up and we were little, that that we didn't just go to Ralph's because it was too expensive. It's a grocery store. She was a single mom on a very small budget, so we would go shop all these different store, like one place that just did meats, one place that just did vegetables, one place that and farmers markets because the cost was less. But there's something that's very like nostalgic about that I love that I'll go to one
yeah.
place for this and one place for that. And it is creating a slower life, and it is lovely, and it's I cannot complain now that I know it's 2 hours away.
That's right. We also host a farmers market at the local exchange once
That's
a week. So that's been
great.
really cool too.
I've got to
Yeah.
say, farmers markets in your area where are agriculturally like so strong, and that's the main products that are coming out. I can't even imagine how incredible your farmers markets must be.
Oh yeah. The beef is amazing. Chicken, pork, it's all grown like right here in the county. We want some more produce, but a lot of people that have gardens, it's just for themselves. And then we have a lot of huge wheat fields and huge cornfields, so it's not like farmers market material. But yeah, the local meat is amazing.
Oh my gosh, I can imagine.
Mhm.
Okay, so I asked earlier off camera, again, strolling through your Instagram, there is this lovely man, Glenn, who he's the cutest thing I've ever seen, and he is on your feed a lot. So, Janet, I'm going to let you tell us about Glenn.
Yeah, I mean he's always been an entertainer. He's always my mom taught him how to play the guitar and he loves to sing. He sings a lot of gospel music. He's done one like a show locally, like two sold out shows in a big theater that we have in our hometown. He just has a beautiful voice, but he just can capture your attention. He worked in the North Carolina schools like an artist in resident thing for about 10 years, and he would go into these classrooms and take little mountain toys, that just made out of wood and show them how to do it. And we used to host jack tales. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they're just like these old mountain tales. They're not so much ghost stories as this crazy story, like Jack and the Beanstalk.
Okay, folklore.
So a friend of ours, he actually got like a Grammy for being a storyteller, some kind of was a national heritage award is what it was.
Oh.
So anyhow, he got all into storytelling too, and then as he got older, he did more like one-man shows instead of with groups and stuff. But he's just he can just hold your attention, whether you're 8 or 80, he will hold your attention in telling a story. And he's got a great singing voice. So
this is your father.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And
I never knew my dad growing up. You know what I mean? It's like, your dad, of course, but you didn't have anything in common. So about 20 years ago, I decided I wanted to play an instrument. And I started with a little mandolin, and he and I we'd drive 3 hours to play music for 3 hours and then drive back home for 3 hours just to go to a big jam or a show or a convention. So we just drew a lot closer during that time, because we did have something in common. So, yeah.
And
he's done some CDs before and, albums and that type thing. So, yeah.
Okay, so everyone who's listening, you have to go to the Instagram because it is seriously the cutest thing. Like, and I love it because he mixes storytelling because he talks about a story before he starts singing and the song.
Oh yeah, he has to tell you the story of the song. But our Facebook page has probably more content than Instagram. I've been a Facebooker longer than Instagram, and it's Bolick and Traditions Pottery too. But we don't, we just have more content on the Facebook page. Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
I mean, honestly, I was like, I have to ask them about Glenn because it's so cute. Tell us a little bit about now you've got your store open, you have your family pottery. When you first, because your daughter said you never miss an Atlanta market. So when you first went to Atlanta, talk about that experience because everyone and their brother talks about, and they're not in small towns, talks about how overwhelming Atlanta is just because the buildings are so big and all the walkways. And so tell us a little bit about how your first trip went and now how you navigate through the show.
Sure. A friend of mine worked at, it was called Goodwin Weavers, which had a showroom there. With that, those coverlets were made here in Blowing Rock. They're generational weavers, just like we were generational potters. And we were just all good friends. So I had a friend that worked at Goodwin Weavers, and she would go help set up the showroom. She worked in their office, but of course, they put you to work in the showroom. So the first 2 times I went, I went with her, and she only knew the one building, that they were in. So it took probably 4 or 5 visits just to understand the concept of each building. But now I can go and hardly ever get lost, But it did open my eyes to what else is out there. It's very inspiring to go as an artist, as a potter, go into the Atlanta Mart. You can just glean a few good ideas or maybe a color you like or a shape that you like in something. But it's a different pace for sure.
I bet. Well, when you started bringing in other products, I mean, again, you've done one thing for all of
Mhm.
your life, and now you are branching out and bringing another. Did you know what you want to bring that was going to complement it? How did you approach? Because
I
now
tried
I
to have it, yeah. I tried to have a good vision of it. Um, I guess I before I did pottery full time, I managed the Corn and Revere factory outlet stores.
right.
Yeah, had we were store 56, and I worked there 7 years, and there was like 120 stores at the end of 7 years. We growed really fast, so they taught me a lot about what the customer wants, price points, inventory. I learned a lot of stuff working for Corning because they made you feel like your store was your own.
Love that.
Um, so then when I got out and I got my own pottery shop and then a bigger space to fill up, I I kept to that home decor kitchen thing because that's what I knew. But I bought the artist Jay. He has aluminum jewelry. He's in North Carolina and he shows in Atlanta. I found him in Atlanta and he did like this beautiful ornate aluminum jewelry, lightweight, looked like silver. And I realized how fast a customer would spend $30 on a necklace, but they might not spend $30 on a glass cutting board.
Hmm.
And so then I got just, having other friends in retail and stuff, I just started thinking maybe I need to go more for personal items instead of just home items, especially in a tourist town. You can't, maybe it's color or will it fit in my kitchen? I don't know, but I just felt like I needed to get more into personal, accessories. So, and then Natural Life, I'll carry them in a big way. I have for 25 years now almost, and they got into clothes. So that got me into clothes, like graphic t-shirts. So, but the place that I'm at now, I've been there about 15 of my 20 some years in retail. And when I went to that place, it was a good time to shift. So I look at the non-pottery items are affordable, just like our pottery mugs are affordable. So they can buy $30 pottery mug and a $30 t-shirt. So I try to keep it, usually if people like pottery, they're going to like that bohemian or the jewel tones,
Mhm.
simple necklaces. And I do a lot of theme things, honey and honey pots and honey based lotion and that type of thing.
Do you cross merchandise? Like, do you make ceramic honey pots and then cross merchandise it with honey from local honey or?
I have, yeah. Just, not having a sink, it gets kind of messy. But
Yeah.
I'll do like honey-based lotions. And then you get into the bee thing, all the little bee things. So yes, I love to cross merchandise and I love to find things that marries with what I have. I found a wonderful just a little kitchen scrubber. It was cute, but it worked good. So then I developed a little holder for that little scrubber. So I love to pair up things like that for
Yes,
sure.
it's funny you said because I have a new client and they are a restaurant slash gift store and it's I kind of have the green light to create all these different magical experiences for them. So I'm
Wow.
cross merchandising a lot, and this is like one of those dreamy jobs where I'm shopping for pasta sauces and pasta. They sell wine already, so we're doing this cross merchandising of that, and I'm finding little pinch pots for salts from another vendor, and
Right. Yeah.
I'm buying the last thing I just bought was little mango spoons to tie onto the salts and show it with a pinch pot and show them all together as one little pre-wrapped gift. So I can imagine a lot of what you're doing, you're able to pair up with other items.
Yeah. And that I love doing that too. And even Lana, she's doing the tallow lotions and soaps, and we're gonna, come up with a good little canister to put that in to market that in. So
I'm not on the beef tallow train, but please explain it. 'Cause I know I see it everywhere, and I know a lot of people like swear by it. So please explain
Oh,
for me and everybody.
it's like I don't know. I've used it for years, but it just kind of blew up. So it's made from beef fat. So actually, all of the beef fat that I get is locally sourced. So I call a rancher and say, how much beef fat do you have? And so you render that down and it makes what we call tallow. It's basically lard.
Okay.
And then you use that to make your lotions. You add, I just add like coconut oil and some essential oils for scent, but also for like lavender is great for your skin. So I make a lavender beef tallow lotion or some beeswax to, make some lip balm, that kind of thing. It's not very hard to make, but everybody loves it and it works. It works on your skin. It's good for your skin. So
This is obviously why you have no wrinkles.
yeah.
This is a stupid question, but when you said the rendering, all I could think about was Fight Club. Is this the same thing you're making in Fight Club?
No, you just heat it up and then, the bad stuff floats on the top and then you strain it through like some cheesecloth and filter it out and get the pure tallow.
Wow, I gotta try it because I like
Yeah.
I said, I see it so many places, and everyone swears by it as far as what it does for your skin. And I've never tried it, and but I've never gotten on the train for it either. So now obviously
Right.
I need to jump on the train.
I'll send you some.
There you go.
With Christmas coming up, we just got done with the July shows. What did you find at the July show that you loved, and what does holiday look like for you? Do you plan it before the trip, or are you kind of planning it as you're shopping, or?
Well, I only go in January because July is one of the 3 biggest months of the year here. So when I go in January, I have had to learn to buy fall and Christmas.
Oh Lord.
Because while you see it, but it's not a lot. If I had to go to Atlanta and fill up an entire store, I would probably just be blown away. But I usually stay 4 days and try to get it all, or at least look at it, take some pictures and some notes. But I try to go ahead and, like, we've had our fall out already for 2 weeks in our store. We make jack-o'-lanterns, like pottery jack-o'-lanterns and pumpkins. So just little bitty chotsy things like shelf setters with legs that move, dangly legs. All that sells good. So usually try to find some of that, maybe some bigger statement pieces, not so much yard, tin, metalware, but more the folk art look, I guess, is what I try to find. Or something might just catch me and, you think, oh, that's going to sell, so you give it a try. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So
Yeah, I know that feeling.
yeah. And then for Christmas, we do a lot of handmade Christmas things too. So just try to pull in a few things to just blend in with it.
Well, because I saw like you have tables and tables of the pumpkins, and then I saw some photos from the last Christmas. And how early are you planning and throwing prior to putting it in your store where you have that much?
Right. Yeah. So the big jack-o'-lanterns we source. We have a gentleman that he and two other guys make those on the wheel. And they bisque fire them. They fire them one time, and then we buy them from those potters, bring them to our facility and clean them up, and then glaze them and fire them in our kiln. So that's a collaboration on those big pieces, and we usually get them we usually order them in March, pick up in June or July. So we've been, running those through our kilns for about a month already.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
And do you ship?
And then, like last week, I made pumpkin, like mugs that have a pumpkin shape to them, and I got them out of the kiln this morning. So those will go in. But the Blue Ridge Parkway is here in our little town, and we're the closest town on the Blue Ridge Parkway. So the fall foliage here is crazy. It's just the amount of people that come to our little town in October is just unbelievable.
Wow.
So that's why we have our Christmas out, or like going in October 1, we'll have a little bit of Christmas already in our store, maybe 10 lineal feet, a wall will just be a good taste of Christmas, because they may not come back and at Christmas. And now, June, July, they may not come back in October. So most of the retailers in Blowing Rock by August 1 will have fallout. So
Wow. With all the people that are coming through, do you have to staff up, obviously, and another question is that the wheel, is it in the store? Can people sit because I always say part of retail now, I think that what's doing so well and what is thinking outside the box of things you need to do to keep customers' attention is, a lot of it is interactive of doing something in the store behind glass or in the middle of the store. Can the people see, when they come to visit, can they see?
They can't in our store in town because it's just so small. But 3 miles from town is my parents have their sales cabin, their studio, and they can come here. And when they get to the studio at their shop, they can they can see our clay pit and our kilns. They can probably catch us throwing pots. So It's kind of a little self-guided thing. It's not right in town, but we need to do a better job at that too. We need a video playing or something going on to show them, because they'll come in and most people will say, how many vendors do you have? Because they're used to that concept of, there's four potters in that sharing, different booths. And I'm like, well, we make it ourselves, and their mouth will just drop open. Wow, you make it yourself. No, you don't walk into many stores now where people say, well, we do this ourselves.
No.
No, and there was a time in Blowing Rock when we had a dulcimer shop, a candle shop,
What's a
woodworking stores. A lot of the places were handmade, but that just a lot of that tradition has left or just not been carried on.
Has it aged out, or is it just there's not a second generation and a third generation to carry it on?
Yeah, I think there's a few that I know of that didn't have that generation to carry on, kind of like we are, Lanna.
Yeah.
but I don't, a lot of it is, Lanna did growing up. She saw Mike and I spend every weekend at a craft show in the summertime.
Wow.
We didn't take vacations unless we took pottery with us. We would deliver something and then we'd have a day off, then we'd spend the night and come back the next day. So maybe that generation has seen the lifestyle of an artist, or especially a traveling artist, that does weekend shows and stuff. But, and then there's not a lot of art you can make a full-time living at, especially, me and my husband both do it. So, art, you can see jewelers doing that, and flat art, of course, but there's a lot of art that people do that's beautiful, but maybe they, full-time, it's hard to sustain or make a living at it, I guess.
I guess also it's where do you show it? Unless it is your own store. In California, in Laguna, there's something called the Sawdust Festival. And my mom took us there when we were kids. And I still remember, and that's where I remember seeing almost all of that type of artwork, pottery and jewelry and scarves.
See, Laguna, and I think it's in that town, we buy some of our clay from Laguna Clay Company, and they're there in California. Yeah, so they have good clay around there, I guess. So yeah, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Your daughter laughed at me because what's a dulcimer? When you said there's no more dulcimers here.
Yeah, it's probably an Appalachian instrument. And it lays across your lap, and it has strings like a guitar. It's kind of in the shape of just the neck of a guitar, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's long and flat.
Yeah, it's like a lap. Yeah.
It's called a lap dulcimer. Now, there is a hammer dulcimer, too, that has little drumsticks almost that you hit the strings with. But the lap dulcimer, you play with a pick, a lot like a guitar.
Was your dad playing one of those in one of the videos? Okay.
Yeah,
I think so. One of the older ones. Yeah.
I saw it and I understood it.
Yeah.
It says a lot for a California girl. So with the upcoming holidays, and so I guess my question is, because you have all the products that you're making that you brought in from other vendors and then what you make,
Mhm.
does the town do a big decorating? Because I think of like small towns like this and
Mhm.
Jacksonville here in Oregon. I spent so much time out of this area because I have to travel so much, and 9 times out of 10, I'm traveling in November and December, and so I don't really get to see the magic of what is my favorite holiday on earth. And I had one day to drive through Jacksonville, and it was so magical because it's literally 3 blocks, if that,
Mhm.
of historical buildings and little retailers. And they had all live garland throughout and the lights.
Yeah.
There's carolers in costume from like the 1800s, and it was magical. So
Mhm.
is it have that same feeling downtown, since you are a tourist area and it's small town, and is it to have that same feeling?
We do, yeah. They do Thanksgiving weekend. They have their Thanksgiving parade, on a little main street. And then that evening they do the lighting of the town. So our little town, the park, right in the middle of town is a great little park. And we have a garden club that just lines flowers up all down the sidewalks and in front of the park, right on the street or by the street. And so they call it the lighting of the town. And there's probably 10 trees in the park that's all lit up. Like they'll hire people to come in there. So yeah, they do that. And yeah, it's really cozy. And Blowing Rock's been, called the best small town in North Carolina. It's always like the top 10 in the South for a small town, because it's just, it was it was started as a tourist town years ago, and it still is. There's summer homes that the people in the summer, the population in the city limits like almost quadruples. It triples
Oh,
because there's so many second homes there for the cool summer air. So yeah, and we have a great chamber of commerce.
fantastic.
They work really hard.
That's really important, I think. And I think also,
Yeah.
are you on the board as well? Because I know a lot of people with small businesses and smaller towns, a lot of
Hmm.
people are actually sitting on council. And I always say to people, like, if you want a voice and you want to have your voice heard, you need to be
Yeah.
involved. And everyone, a lot of small, like Hermosa Beach, Curious is on the council, and I think it's important to be involved in your town, especially if,
Hmm.
to move it forward and help grow it, et cetera.
Right. And Blowing Rock has so many retail and um, hotels and restaurants. And I'm not on the board, but I've been on a lot of committees. I actually went last week to, it was like a focus group, and they've hired this, branding company to come in and say, what's Blowing Rock now? What are we heading to? They just ask a lot of good questions. So, but yeah, I try to stay active in all that I can. And we have, with our pottery, it's an we're almost a destination as well as some of the other tourist places. Yeah, so they help us. They've promoted us over the years too. They'll send travel writers here or photographers, and they just, I guess, if people's looking for a story, well, what's local art, and we're one of those that they can always think of because we're in the second generation of it here in Blowing Rock. So
Oh my gosh, you
yeah.
have to talk more about this on your social media. Like I mean,
Yeah.
be ad and just what it looks like and how it's made. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of what social media is now is obviously people wanting to know who's behind the brand and the story, and
Hmm.
what makes it special. And like your guys' story is so special and it sounds so incredible. Like you need to put Glenn out there more.
I know, I do. I need a person, and I don't. I guess it is how you spend your time. You know what I'm saying? It's like at the end of the day, I need to do a post, I need to do something, and just trying to find that content. But it, I take it for granted that people don't know these stories, or they don't know how a lid's made to fit a sugar bowl. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's there's a thing now where everyone is just going live and not even
Hmm.
talking to the camera. There's a guy named Gary Vee who's a very big business
I've
guy.
heard him.
So Gary Vee is so ahead of what's happening social media wise. And
Hmm.
his thing is the biggest people who are blowing up right now are those who are going live, a hairdresser, somebody that has an interactive job. And they're
Hmm.
not even talking to the camera. They're literally, the camera's on, it's live, they're making, and it's funny to watch people's, like the people watching their interaction with each other. What is that person doing? And someone, because I had asked somebody else, how does it work how does it work with somebody explaining what you are doing? And there's somebody had said, there's so many people who watched you for so long, they will step up for you and say, oh, she's doing this, just keep like almost like the know-it-all person. They become like the person that speaks for you. And I mean, it's amazing because it's
Hmm.
what your story and what you're doing and the history and the lineage is like so important for people to know. And
Yeah.
it's such an incredible story that I feel like there's so much you could do and tell more. I mean, I will be telling your story, but I think that it's so important for people to know and hear about because it sounds incredible.
Yeah, yeah. And we tell that story. We tell a lot of stories over and over in our store to the people that come there. But Blowing Rock has so much foot traffic. And I think when the season hits, from July till really December or first week of January is our season. And when it finally hits, you don't even think about Facebook anymore because you've got those people right there in your store. So you'll see we do more posts definitely in January, February, March than we do and when the season gets here, because then it's just wide open. You just wake up and think, okay, what has to be done today?
I have to ask you a question because I've had several family businesses where the whole family works together, and I work with my husband as well. And people ask us all the time, like, how do you guys work together? So now I'm going to ask you, how do you all work together, multi-generation?
Right.
Because if I worked with my mother, she doesn't listen to this, so I can say this, I would probably kill her. Like,
Right.
love her, but I would probably kill her. So I
Yeah.
often wonder, how is it to work? And is there any points where you're like, just get out of the store, get away from me? Like,
Yeah, pretty much. I think for my grandfather's and his children, there's 4 pottery shops separate. There's 4 of it's his son, and then 2 other of his children have pottery shops. So there's a reason that there's 4 different ones instead of one altogether now. And I worked for my parents growing up. I mean, we worked. That's what we did. We worked in the pottery shop. And then when Mike decided he wanted to do it, we knew there was no way that would work. So our pottery shop is across the creek from my parents' pottery shop. There's just a little space there between us because you do want to do your own thing. But we've kind of come full circle. Like when we started out, my parents helped me, and then we hosted kiln openings together and did shows together, throughout the years. But now they're in their 80s, so now we're helping them a little more. We help them because there's some things they can't physically do, or and they didn't change a lot. They don't have social media. They don't have a .com. They never really had a retail store. It was just their store here at their workshop. So, but with me and Mike doing it, I guess, in the 80s, we did retail, wholesale, emails, we mailed letters. I mean, we had a mailing list with addresses, physical addresses.
I
So,
love handwritten letter. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Tell us more
we
about
did that. I think it was we were mailing up like 400 letters about our kiln openings, and we finally just said, "Look, we got to switch it to email." A few years, years later, but I think to make a living at pottery, I had to learn all those aspects. I had to learn to build my own website and your own social media stuff, because you got to, when COVID happened, I know we hate to talk about that, but I told Mike, I said, people are going to shop. They're going to find a way to shop. And we just killed it. We already had an Etsy store and our own .com. And it was crazy what we shipped out. I mean, it
Wow.
was amazing for us. And that was a God sent thing for us. It just,
Wow.
we would ship 20, 30 boxes a week, where we'd been shipping, like from Etsy, we would ship maybe 4 a week. We was shipping 20, 30, like for 4 or 5 months straight. It was
Wow.
incredible.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have a whole other question. It's like, because, a lot of people right now, well, it's not so much now, but like 6 months ago, I had so many clients of like, but we're down, we're down. It's like, you're not
Yeah.
down because you need to compare your numbers to 2019, not
Right.
when it was funny money and monopoly money and everyone had,
Yeah.
because that wasn't real money. I mean, it was great,
Mhm.
but it really, so how is it from your sales when it was booming with
Mhm.
monopoly money to now? Did you have that drop, or have you, because you've had tourism that's
Right.
up again?
Yeah. We had that drop on the person to person sales. Of course that went down, but it stayed level because of our online sales. So it's like we didn't skip a beat. But see, last year, we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of Hurricane Helene. So
Mm.
that hit us. That we, thank God, were safe. Our little Blowing Rock was safe. Boone got it. Lanna's in-laws, their house flooded. They lost their home.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
So that, see, I'm going back to it again now. I'm like, I can't look at last year. I
Yeah,
mean, we were down thousands of dollars last year in October. It would be like you missing. A friend of mine said, "Well, she made a comment, and I was like, well, you missed 2 months of your payroll or your paycheck. That's how it felt.
yeah.
We missed all of the fall. People thought everybody was closed. So it was like COVID again. You're having to go back the prior year to compare your sales. So,
Oh, I forgot about the hurricanes. I didn't
yeah.
realize how far out where it
And
hit.
it was sad because the restaurants were just getting it staffed again from COVID, where you could go in. And so then Helene came through, and people are still, I mean, there's still people in tents, in certain places. It's still a big thing.
Oh my God.
So, but we fared through that, but people thought everybody in Western North Carolina was closed, and we weren't. So it took us till December or even January to get people to understand you can still come to our town and shop, So
Now is it kind of back to, are you up from
Mhm.
that prior time now?
Yeah, I'm up this year. I sure am. But
Congrats.
I know some other people are saying, well, it's level, and now, but yeah, we're up this year. So but too, I don't know. I used to run an emporium type thing like Lanna, and a lot of people would say our sales are down, and I'd say, well, let's go look at your booth, and is it new merchandise? Is it old merchandise? Have they seen this for 3 months already? What are you selling? Is it a desirable thing? So there's, how that is, Michelle. There's a lot to look at when
I
you're
know. And
displaying things.
it's funny, people, I think that sometimes it's a lot easier to jump on the negative Nelly
hmm
wagon of like, we're not doing any business. It's like you said, like, well, let's look at why. Like,
Yeah.
and I've had a couple instances myself where it's like, okay, well, there's no new product, and what you have
hmm
brought in is so little that it's getting lost in all the old stuff
Right.
because
Yeah.
it's the majority of what you have is older,
hmm
and the little tiny bit you've brought in that's new, you can't even see it, and it's not right in the front, so you've just kind of tucked it wherever, so it's in Easter egg
Right.
hunt. People actually have to look for it, and it's a good. And how was the reception when you would do that, and how has it changed, like people taking your advice? And because it sounds like you have done a lot of consulting with people, both for business wise as well,
Right.
helping your neighbors out.
Yeah. And a lot of it's just they know, and I've worked more one-on-one with consulting artists, handmade. Um, I'm one gentleman was doing like the wood carved dough bowls, like the ornate, oval, and he'd get this burl wood and make this beautiful bowl. But his tablecloth was like a khaki tablecloth. So a lot of it was just like, well, they can't really see the wood. It's the same color as your tablecloth. Think of like lime green or something to put, behind a better backdrop, or sand it up, or put some heights, not acrylic, risers on there. Put some risers on there, some wood risers or something. But, a lot of it's just, they know the art. They don't know the merchandise of it. And even helping people with, cash flow or things like that. They just know that art. And most artists are that way. They're really great at what they do, but all these other aspects of business, they just haven't gotten that yet. And I think growing up in it and doing it my entire life, a lot of it I've learned the hard way, but you definitely remember it when your daughter comes to you and says, "Hey, we want to open this up." I just kept throwing stuff at her, and I sent her like agreement, like a consignment agreement, or she can modify it herself, because you have to have all that for a business, to work smoothly and not get into trouble with, well, they said you could do this. Well, you can't, or you got to treat everybody the same when you're in that booth environment.
Yeah. I mean, it's, people need boundaries and structure. And like you starting, Lanna, starting a brand new thing like that, I'm sure it came with not only, trying to fill it and everyone, stays in their own lane, so to speak, but the paper part of it, the contract part of it, and loss prevention part of it. And like, there's so much of retail in that situation that I'm sure that people don't realize. And like you said, artist, it's funny, it's like you don't know what you don't know. If you're a creator and you're an artist, that's where you're passionate about, and that's what you do, and you throw that group of people into your retail situation, it's like, how would I know? It's like, it's lovely that you help people out with that, because it is important. I mean, it's important for the retail industry as well as community, the retail community that you've built, that you guys have all built there.
Yeah.
I have two questions. One is a random question that I've never asked anybody, but because you both have situations, I feel like there could be some good stories. Is what is the craziest story or person that has come into either of your stores? And I know, Lanna, you have to have some crazy story.
Well, I think the craziest story I have, I think, is it actually took place in my mom's store when I was working there several years ago. And this lady came in and she wanted 2 mugs that were exactly the same.
Good luck.
This is handmade pottery. We don't use molds. It's wood or, electric fire. Like, there's no way to get, this is not China products. This is handmade 3 miles down the road. This is not mass production of a pottery cup. And so she was just absolutely appalled that she could not get 2 mugs that were exactly the same. And I tried to explain to her what handmade pottery was, but she just kept getting madder and madder that she couldn't get 2 that were the same.
Did she
I think that's
or did she leave all huffy?
No, she left huffy, and I was just standing there like, I don't know how else I could have explained this. I explained it the best way I knew how.
We always say it's handmade pottery. You don't pick it up, you pick it out.
Yeah.
Because you got to pick out, what you want. But I guess my funniest story, I wasn't in my store, but we did a lot of flea markets and collected our older pottery from our family for years. And we were at a flea market one time, and we picked up a little sugar and creamer set, and my mom would always sign hers L. Owens Bolick. That's how she's always signed her pottery. And the gentleman that was selling it had several pieces of older pottery there. And So I knew it was Mom's, when I seen it, and so I picked it up and looked at it, and he said, "Now that lady passed away about 10 years ago, and it's very, he said it was a very valuable piece. She didn't make many of them, and he had it priced way too much, But I told him, no, that's my mom. She's still living. No, she, and he knew her name, and but he just didn't have it right. So that was pretty funny for me. But
Do you
in
ever
the store, I
believe
don't know
you?
what would be. I'm sorry.
Do you ever believe you that that was your mom? And it's
I
like,
don't think you did. It's like the other lady.
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I mean, I love the fact that your mom's now like a folkloric person. Nope, low, she made it
Right.
for you. It's like it's a very good piece.
That's why it costs so much. It's because
Exactly.
she's
Well,
making
I'm
it.
guaranteed he sold it because of that. Guaranteed.
Probably did. Yeah. Yeah. But she had probably made it in the last 10 years.
Oh my gosh. Thank you both so much for spending time with me. I love this conversation. And it's a completely different avenue of retail that
Mhm.
we are used to, but that's what I love about retail is like everybody's story is different and how retail works in each community in each area. And it's like, thank you so much for bringing your stories and your generational like knowledge to the industry.
Yeah, well, we enjoy you. I turned Lana
Yes.
onto you months ago, and it's just really great. I'm listening to you in the car, and I'm just shaking my head. Yes, that's exactly right. To the people that you bring on brings a lot to us as well. So
It
we're
does.
always
Yeah.
learning.
It's
Yeah.
been, I will say it's been a pleasure, but I have to ask you because your dad sings gospel and everything, like how in excuse my language, how in the hell did you come across the podcast with this name? I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it is a huge contention point for some people where I
Yeah.
I will put out invitations like I'd love you to come on. I
Hmm.
understand the name. The name is really for me because I've been in retail since I was a kid. I've done
Yeah.
every single job, but you have people that either don't answer you, and finally somebody did say, I'll be very honest, like I love what you're talking about, but the name, I'm a feminist and I have a hard time with that word. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's fair, but
Yeah.
I think I
Well,
probably passed it up a couple of times, but I've always loved Bob Megan. I did his whiz bang thing, the first Zoom one he had a few years ago. And so from that, you just get into who else can I listen to? And but I did pass you up a couple of times because of the name. But then when you realize it's because you've done this forever and you know stuff. You've done all aspects of retail. So I get it.
yeah. And my husband is a Baptist preacher. That's why I'm in South Dakota.
oh my God, oh
So
my
I
God.
didn't love your
I should
name
not have been
either, to be
promoting
honest. But no, I have not found any other retail podcast, and I've searched, that's as practical as yours, and
Yeah.
that really interviews people that are in the thick of it that can help the other people like us that are in the
Mhm.
thick of it, trying to learn everything we can. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, thank you so much. See everybody. I what we have a different logo that we use. We use it on Bob's last one. I think it's just TRW and the retail horse is very small. So we'll make sure we use that that logo for you. Don't anticipate Lana you sharing it because your husband. So
Oh, I'll share it. It'll be
Yeah.
fine.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Thank you
There's grace and forgiveness.
Yeah.
guys so much. I loved my time with you.
So we
Really
have with
enjoyed it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.